At this time, we're going to go to item 4A on the agenda, the department's report on the AAIP, Chamber of Commerce, and others. Can you bring up Deputy Chief Blake Chow, please?
I'm glad you're here.
Hi, good morning, Commissioner. Sorry, we had a little bit of technical difficulty.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name, this is Blake Chow. I'm the commanding officer, Operations West Bureau, and we're here to present the AAPI presentation and in honor of AAPI Heritage Month we've been joined by our community members who all get a chance to say a few words. But before I do that, I'm going to let Commander Flores kind of kick it off.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ruby Flores. I am the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Officer, and it's with great honor and pleasure that we meet this morning in honor of our AAPI community. The purpose of today's presentation is to give you a glimpse from a community standpoint about what AAPI means within the city of LA and what it means within the Los Angeles Police Department. As you know, we have assembled some displays that are down in the lobby. We've done this for so far 3 other months with respect to Women's History or Black History Month. And now we're honored to unveil and share with you the lobby display downstairs for AAPI. But with that, I would like to introduce our guest with us today. I know we're small on your screen, but with us today is, of course, Deputy Chief Blake Chow, also Captain John Tom, who's representing our LEAP Affinity Organization, Chester Chong from our Chinese Chamber of Commerce, Chang Lee from our Korean Chamber of Commerce, Rosalind Vasquez from our Thai Chamber of Commerce, Ellen Kondo and Joanne Kumamoto from Little Tokyo Business Improvement District, representing our Japanese American community. Via Zoom, we do have another guest. His name is Mr. Zia Islam, representing our Bangladesh Unity Federation of Los Angeles. And lastly, Sunny Sapanta, representing our Filipino community from Rampart as a CPAB chair.
All right, good morning, commissioners. You know, every May we sit here, we celebrate AAPI month, and really this is a time for us to not only celebrate the AAPI contributions that have been made to our country and our state, as well as our city, but also to the LAPD. And really we have to celebrate, we have to remember where we were, where we have been, and where we still need to go. But if you look back at the history of AAPI here within the LAPD and the city, it's quite astonishing about how far actually we've come. One of the things I like to start off with is kind of my family's history, because I think my family's story is not really unlike many other millions of stories of people that are living here in the city or part of this police department, because everybody that has come to this country really has a similar story. So my grandparents immigrated to the United States in 1913, and they settled in Sacramento. And at the time, the law prohibited them from actually owning land. So they were farmers, but they had to rent land, and they were actually sharecroppers. They farmed potatoes and asparagus. They had 8 children, and they had 4 boys. All the boys either served in World War II or the Korean War, but I had an uncle or my father in every single branch of the armed services at some point in time. So again, I bring that up because it's really important for the community to look at us and realize we are the community, and our stories are exactly the same. In 1990, when I joined the LAPD, the AAPI representation is very low. It was actually very difficult for a community member to look at the LAPD and kind of see a reflection of itself. And it was actually rare when you were working the field to actually find a police officer that could actually translate into the native AAPI language. If we needed a translator, we had to refer either a victim or a witness to a phone bank that had somebody on the other end that would actually translate for them. So you can imagine people didn't call the police because they didn't want to go through that hassle. We had issues with kind of building trust with the community because of the language issues. And I also remember a story of when I came on in 1990, the highest ranking AAPI officer on the LAPD was the lieutenant. And I remember having a conversation with a very, very young sergeant when I was a very young P2. And I asked him, why don't we have more AAPI representation up at the captain and above ranks? And he told me, he said, Blake, it's going to take some time. The department was really pushing to hire AAPI officers. I think we're only maybe 5% of the workforce at that particular time. But he said it's going to take some time because all these people that we're hiring have to filter their way up through the department, get the experience, and we will get there and it will happen. And now I look back, if you look at the panel, if you have a chance to look at the panel downstairs, he was absolutely right. We have gotten there. And I'm happy to say that sergeant retired as a deputy chief a few years ago. But these were conversations we were having back in the 90s when we didn't know which direction we needed to go. So I'm really happy to have our community members here as well as representatives, Captain Tom from LEAP. But today, I think we can really honestly say that the AAPI community can look at the police department and see itself. Still a lot of work to do. This task will never end long after we've gone, but we've made so many strides in the last 30 years, and it's really a thanks to the people that are here with me, especially the community. So with that, I'm going to start handing it off to our community members so they can say a few words. First, I'd like to introduce a friend of mine who I've known for probably 20 years, Mr. Chester Chong, the Chinese Chamber of Commerce, Los Angeles.
Yes, my name is Chester Chong. Good morning, everyone, and I'll be very proud to be here, and my honor can speak on behalf of my community. And my name is Chester Chong, Chairman of the Chinese Chamber of Commerce of Los Angeles. The Chinese Chamber of Commerce of Los Angeles was founded in 1898 to act as a bridge between the Chinese community and the general public to promote the business interest of Chinese merchants in Los Angeles. The Chamber sponsors events just like the Golden Dragon Chinese New Year Parade, which Los Angeles Chinatown pageant is a 124-year history, have been more harmony and understand between people and different backgrounds. And this moment, I would like to thank you for the LAPD for the past many years. I've been chamber for 32 years since 1988 myself. And then I'm the longest one in the president and the chairman. And that's why on behalf of my community, thank you, LAPD, doing so much thing for the many years of the parade. Every year they come to support this. I'm so appreciative with the LAPD and the Asian community to help. I don't think we have the success event. Another thing, and also the past 2 years during the pandemic, we worked together to donate a lot of the mask, PPE and equipment, and also, we worked together to clean up the Chinatown with the chief and LAPD member and the high. This is so appreciative I can share with everyone today, and very important. By the way, and our society, just like a big family, every citizen in the family, every citizen is a family member and should do he or her part of respect each other. We should learn about each other's culture and respect different ethnic groups. We are different, but we are the same. We look like different, so we are the same. With the spirit of love, we can learn to form good interperson relationship and change misunderstanding and conflict between one another, so the society can be stable and harmonious. If we can do this, the country and the world can be more peaceful and stable. I always mention, I believe one world is one family. We should respect each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Chester. Next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Chang Lee, Korean Chamber of Commerce.
Good morning. Thank you, Chief. Chief Moore, good morning. Good to see you again. My name is Chang Lee. I'm with the Korean Chamber of Commerce. I held position as president, chairman, and then recently another chairmanship to serve the Chamber of Commerce. I immigrated here in 1971, and I was engineer by trade. Now I'm a businessman, and so I'm also, this year is a special year. Marks the 30th anniversary of LA riot, or you want to call it civil unrest, and more than any other community, Korean American community suffered the most during the riot in 1992. And I also lost my business to the fire. So my story has been carried with the mainstream medias on the 25th anniversary, and then this year also the story has been carried. So what happened back in 1992? Our community was a forgotten people. We were, as you all know, that there was a barricade that actually kept us in, and there was no police presence during that unrest time. But since then, 30 years later, there's a day and night difference. Since the riot, there has been a tremendous improvement that's been made, and then continuously, the improvements are being made. And recent, last year, I think we had another mini civil unrest. And one of the things Chief Moore promised our community is that 1992 riot will not repeat. And Chief, thank you for keeping your words, because our community was saved from that uprising. I think this was all due to the efforts that was made by LAPD, chief and deputy chief. Here we have a Captain Tom from LEAP, and also the chief's office, Danny Chow, reaching out to our communities, actually implementing and exercising community policing. In the past, if LAPD officers were intimidation to our community, now they are friends. We can now communicate, we can now work together as partners to improve the safety of our communities, and that's the biggest change. So one of the interviews I conducted with Spectrum News was that, hey, there's a big change here. It is different now, that we feel safe, that the hurt and the anguish that we suffered in 1992 is no longer here. And we are very happy and appreciative of that. And recently, there was a big movement in the city. Unfortunately, the LAPD budget was cut. There was a defunding movement. Korean community came out in the front, opposing the defunding. We supported LAPD because the safety is a foundation, we believe, foundation of our well-being of our community. So we had to come out in public, opposing defunding and supporting LAPD. And we'll continue to do so and we'll continue to work with the Chief Chow, Captain Tom, Danny Chow, and other LAPD representatives, so that our community, along with other AAPI community, can live and work and
be more
play.
positive in supporting young people. And here's the other thing that I think is going to really help us to do, and that's expand
Thank you.
more
Great. Thank you, Chang. Next, I'd like to introduce Rosalind Vasquez from the Thai Chamber of Commerce.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Chief. My name is Rosalind Vasquez, and I am President of the Thai American Chamber of Commerce. I would like to start by saying thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. My parents were immigrants from Thailand and successful business owners. My father understood how important it was for the Thai community to be represented not only among our community members, but also with law enforcement. So my father established the Thai American Chamber of Commerce in 2005. And in 2010, he established the Thai American Sheriff's Advisory Council. Although my father is no longer with us, I am so happy to be here today, working side by side with our community leaders that my father also worked with, and building the Thai community's relationship with the LAPD. Los Angeles is home to the largest Thai population outside of Thailand, but we are still one of the smaller communities here in the city of Los Angeles. Most of our community members are unable to communicate or understand English with ease. And previously, most of our community knew LAPD through the few Thai LAPD officers we had. The Thai LAPD officers are considered heroes in our community, not only here, but even in Thailand, where the king bestows honors upon LAPD officers. However, over the past 2 years, there's been a real shift in our relationship and a real growth. And I think that's because LAPD has met our community where we need it. Over the past couple of years, as you know, in addition to the sufferings as a result of the pandemic and civil unrest, we've also been cloaked in fear because of the anti-Asian hate sentiment that had been going around. And LAPD really came out to our community and met us. Leadership starts at the top, and I want to thank Chief Moore for providing a space for open dialogue through the Asian Pacific Islander Community Forum. It was through these forums that I could directly share the concerns of Thai business owners and community members, and in response, we saw action. So thank you, LAPD, for standing with us during our rallies against anti-Asian hate and instilling protocols so that our community can report incidents of hate with ease. Thank you, LAPD, for understanding the cultural and language barriers in the Thai community, providing information in language in Thai concerning hate incidents, hate crimes, and creating a list of Thai interpreters, which includes me, who is available to help take any reports from victims in Thai and help with translations. And thank you to Officer Dandy Chow and Deputy Chief Blake Chow for making it possible for our community to have its first ever meeting with LAPD. We had a Thai business safety meeting in Thai Town. It was the first time our community had ever sat down with LAPD, and it was really well received. The meeting was especially important and very timely, given the increased vandalism and burglaries seen by our business owners during the pandemic and growing concerns over the homeless population surrounding our communities. LAPD is truly one of our most important community partners, and we look forward to continuing to develop our relationship. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosalind. Next, I'd like to introduce Ellen Endo. I think I first met her when I was a police officer walking the footbeat in Little Tokyo. But Ellen was an editor for Rapu Shimpo, which still is a newspaper in Little Tokyo that was founded in 1903. So Ellen, please.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners. What I do these days, and I do still work for the newspaper, believe it or not, but I'm also the co-chair, along with Joanne Kumamoto, of the Little Tokyo Business Improvement District. The BID is managed by the Little Tokyo Business Association. There are these days over 400 businesses in Little Tokyo. When we started in 2003, there were about 250. So all of our needs in terms of safety and cleanup and have increased. And one thing we've noticed, we realized over the years, is that the law enforcement and those of us who work on behalf of the community is a partnership. And in a partnership, everybody has to do their part. And we really feel like the LAPD has done that for us. And it was a learning curve for both sides. And now there's no sides. We're all on the same side. So I want to point that out. In the community, however, there are challenges we're facing that didn't exist when we first started. many years ago. And one of them is the anti-Asian hate. And we had, last year we had at one of our temples, one of the more high profile incidents with one of the temples was vandalized. Lanterns were toppled, windows broken, somebody, they set a fire. And then more recently, another temple was entered, and with the intention, broke a sliding glass door, broke office equipment, really no other purpose except to express some sort of hate towards the Buddhists. And then actually last week, the Gopher Broke Veterans Monument was vandalized. Somebody lit a t-shirt on fire, threw it on top of the monument, and it did cause damage. And and those kinds of incidents, I think, are difficult to categorize. Because what's happened is it has to meet certain thresholds to be qualified to be named a hate crime, and we're finding that at the prosecution level, it's kind of dismissed, and it's sort of downgraded to an incident, and that's hurting us. That's not addressing the issue that we feel is most important, and that is to call a hate crime a hate crime. One of the things we do appreciate is the ability to have a two-way communication with LAPD, and that has actually grown and matured over time. Whereas we can text the captain and say, this is happening and we need your help, and have a response immediately. And we prioritize it. We don't do it very often, but when we need it, it's there, and we appreciate that. So I wanted to thank the Los Angeles Police Department and also our local Central Division, which is a partnership that we look forward to continuing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Okay, via Zoom, I'd like to introduce Mr. Zia Islam from the Bangladesh Unity Federation of Los Angeles.
Thank you, Commander. I'm Zia Islam. I'm the General Secretary of Bangladesh Unity Federation of Los Angeles. We are representing the Little Bangladesh community here in Los Angeles. In Southern California, we have about 100,000 Bangladeshis living in Southern California. Me personally, I emigrated to US about 25 years back. And since my in-laws are from California, I had been living in California for about 20 years now. Now, from a broad perspective, when we speak about Asian Americans, we do also include the Indian Americans or South Asian Americans, because the same exclusion era rules also applied to us, unfortunately, and it was a thing of the past. Absolutely, we have come long way, and in 100 years, like the one that was passed to disallow South Asians from getting citizenship in the United States was United States versus Bhagat Singh, and it was exactly 100 years back. So we've come a long way. The 1992 riots does not define us, will not define LAPD. We have seen what LAPD has done in the last few years, especially in the leadership of Chief Moore, who has also come and joined our parade. Bangladesh Unity Federation organizes a parade for the last 16 years, and LAPD had been joining the parade every year, creating a bond between the community. We are a very new community in the sense that almost all of our residents are first-generation Americans, not the storied history we see in this table around Commander Chow. They have the family history goes hundreds of years. Most of ours goes a quarter century at most, like mine. Being said that, we look forward to some more participation of South Asians in the LAPD. And I have also expressed that to Chief Moore panel. He conducts that monthly panel. That is also very, very useful. We express our opinion, and I had been telling it ever since he started that forum. We need to get more Muslim Americans in the fold. If we want to have proper representation of LA, then the police force need to represent the beautiful mosaic the city represents. And just to give you a reference, also, in a very dark past of our California history, that is during the Second World War, the Japanese internment camps, the most decorated of all US battalions was 442nd Infantry Battalion, a Japanese American battalion. Just think of that. The people who we have put in jails, sort of, confiscated the property, their children were the most decorated soldiers in US Army ever. So I request the board and LAPD to come up with innovative ways to attract these Muslim Americans, South Asians, and other Asian Americans to be included in the force. And that will really speak very highly of the LAPD. And I think NYPD has gone a long way in that measure. We have about 500 police officers NYPD from Bangladesh, believe it or not. So with that, I would like to conclude. We all love LAPD. The community loves LAPD. They always get behind LAPD whenever there is any issues, because we have seen how cooperative they are. And you can tell, like, I do not mince words. I will criticize people if they are to be criticized, but LAPD had been doing a great job, especially under the leadership of Chief Moore. And I wish LAPD all the best. I wish this cooperation remains. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Islam. Okay, next I would like to introduce Mr. Sunny Zapanta. He's a Filipino community representative, and he's on the Rampart CPAP.
Good morning, commissioners. I would like to start by saying that after I retired from the Navy, from New York, we migrated to California in 1980. In 1980, when we first started living in the neighborhood, I noticed that the neighbors are complaining about car theft and grocery and mail or package stealing, which is very rampant in our neighborhood. I am a Catholic, so when I go to church, our pastor talked to me and asked me to form a neighborhood watch so that we can have a relationship with the LAPD. And that's what the neighborhood did. We formed a neighborhood watch so that we can watch with each other on any crime that is happening in our neighborhood. And lo and behold, they elected me as the president of the neighborhood watch. And also I became a CPAB member. From then on, every first Tuesday of the month, we have meeting at the LAPD and discuss whatever crime prevention or safety that we can do to protect our neighborhood. And so I became very good relationship with our senior lead officer. And from then on, I always talk to them whenever there are issues regarding the safety of our neighborhood. Up to this time, from 1980 to 2022, I still do the same thing in our neighborhood. And thanks God, we were able to maintain the safety of our neighborhood because of the help of our senior lead officer, our LAPD, who are taking care of our issues and prevention of crime in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sonny. Okay, and to wrap it up, I'd like to introduce Captain John Tom, whom you all know, with the Law Enforcement Association of Asian Pacifics.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'd like to first start with introducing Elena Asukan. She's a police administrator. She's a LEAP board member, and she's the commanding officer of Records and Identification Division. So thank you for joining us today. My name is Jonathan Tom, and as we talked about, I'm the commanding officer of West Los Angeles area and the current president of the Law Enforcement Association of Asian Pacifics. My story is similar to Chief Chow's in that my family first emigrated to America in 1875. We've lived in the Los Angeles area essentially ever since then and been part and parcel of the community here. I was talking to Ms. Endo, and there's a photo of my grandfather in the Chinese American Museum in Chinatown or in the El Pueblo. So it's a very rich history that we have here. But going into it, LEAP was founded in 1991 in the aftermath of the Los Angeles riots. The riots left a profound impression on everyone, including Asians in the community and on the department. At that time, it was perceived by many that the department had mishandled the riots and allowed Asian community members to be victimized. At that time, during the riots, I was also living in Koreatown and saw the evidence of what Mr. Cheng Lee was talking about. A lot of us did feel alone. It was part of the reason that I came on the job and actually was recruited by then Sergeant Terry Hara, who ended up being at the time our first deputy chief of Asian American heritage. So many Asian officers, including the LEAP founders, felt that Asians were overlooked and marginalized in the department. And the goal of LEAP, as described by its founding president, retired Lieutenant Mike Yang, was to create an organization that would unite Asian Pacific Islander Americans, also known as APIA officers, and be their voice because they didn't have one at that time. The need for LEAP continues to this day. And according to the latest available info for the department, APIA officers represent 10.6% of the department's sworn personnel. This is obviously a huge increase from when Chief Chow came on the job, even from when I came on the job. I think we were around maybe 5% of the department when I came on the job in 1996. But obviously the 10.6% of the department falls short of where the city is. Currently, the city is at 12% in the as residents. And we are the only underrepresented ethnic group within the LAPD. And while we have made strides within the department, most notably the appointment of an APIA Assistant Chief, Dominic Choi, and 2 APIA Deputy Chiefs, Chief Chow and Chief Graham, we still have significant challenges because despite there being qualified candidates, there are 0 APIA commanders and Captain 2s. And we're also underrepresented in the ranks of Lieutenant, Lieutenant 2, Sergeant 2, and Police Officer 1. The Police Officer 1 currently we're at 8.3% in the department. So we do have some room for growth there. We would love to come up to the 12% in that area because these are the people that are going to be filling these ranks for the next 30 years. These positions are important, as I said, because they're the feeder ranks that set up our employees to be competitive for the next level of promotions. When there are qualified candidates within the department, it's the department's and LEAP's job to ensure that those candidates are not only prepared, but recognized for their abilities. There are many APIA officers that feel they have been discriminated against because their contributions have been overlooked and or they don't fit the traditional mold of what the evaluators are looking for. Without equitable distribution amongst all the ranks and pay grades, promotions and opportunities will inevitably be diminished for APIA officers, and the department will not be able to meet its goal of marrying the communities that we serve. That's a lofty goal and one that should be attained. That being said, LEAP is committed to helping the department reach its goals and proud that LEAP has participated in the creation of Asian Hate Crime Resource Cards, working with Commander Flores, Asian Hate Crime town halls that we've participated in Sawtell and in other areas, We participated in promotional seminars for every rank and pay grade that has been offered by the department, and we've helped to put together the API panels that have been presented to you. And lastly, LEAP was able to recently, we were able to interview retired Detective Joyce Cano, who was the first female Asian Pacific Islander American policewoman, and later to be the first investigator. Interestingly enough, listening to the stories, actually the gentleman from Bangladesh and Joyce Cano had talked about the impact of Japanese Americans in America. She was born in the Santa Anita relocation camp just because she was Japanese American. She was later moved to the Amachi Detention Center in Colorado. And yet she was able to overcome all of that background and come on the job in 1967. And really I believe she was policewoman number 23. That was her badge number that was issued to her. So saying that, we would love for the community and for the police commission to take a look at those panels. Her story, her bio as written by her is on there. Hopefully we'll be able to come out with that video, with that interview of her so that everyone can hear her story. And just like to say that we stand on the shoulders of those that came before us, and we hope to lift up those that come after us. There's still work to be done. And LEAP is proud to be a voice for its members and an advocate for diversity, equity, inclusion.
Thank you, Captain. Thank you for your time, Commissioners. Chief, that concludes our presentation. If you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chief Chow, Commander Flores, members of the AAPI community. The stories that you've told and shared with us today demonstrate the contributions that your communities individually and collectively have made both to our country, our state, and our city. And you know, I have to say on behalf of myself, hopefully on behalf of the other commissioners, we simply applaud you. Applaud each one of you and your communities for the tenacity that each one of you have shown despite some of the challenges that you've faced, similar to other communities in this country. And you've overcome them, and we really appreciate your grit and your merit. We understand that you're faced with challenges now. Some of those challenges are the anti-Asian crimes and incidents that we've all witnessed during the pandemic period that we've gone through. And you know, the department is committed to working with your communities to ensuring that those acts of hatred are stopped. With that, I want to open it up to some of the other commissioners who may have questions for you at this time. Do any of the commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Soboroff? I think you turned your camera off, Commissioner Soboroff.
It's a milk.
Okay.
There you go.
I want to echo, Mr. President, your comments, but also it's just so easy to forget. You know, it's so easy to let things go and not remember and understand the significance. And I think that today was really an important presentation to bring back to the forefront just the long-term relevance and seriousness about what's gone on in this community and how important the community has been to not only LAPD, but to Los Angeles and I guess to America as well. So this was a very well done presentation. And I think it was a very timely and much appreciated.
Thank you, Commissioner Soboroff. Commissioner Decker, I saw that you had your mic open.
Yes, thank you. First, I'd like to join the comments of my colleagues regarding the presentations today. They were excellent. Thank you. They were deeply meaningful. And frankly, I found it a privilege to hear your individual stories about your families, your histories, and to hear about your work in Los Angeles, and to hear about your work with the LAPD and the efforts both you and the department have undertaken, particularly recently, to improve policing and relationships in your community. So thank you for that, and thank you for the work that you're doing. So Mr. Chong, Mr. Lee, Ms. Vasquez, Ms. Endo, Mr. Islam, and Mr. Zapato, I do have a question I hope each of you could answer. But since there's 6 of you, I hope you can do it briefly. But my question is, you talked about the past efforts, and that's all very important, but I wonder if you could take us, more to the future in the next year or so. What would be the biggest issue that you would like the department to be working on with you to address concerns in each of your communities?
I'd like to go first. This is Cheng Li. One of the challenges that I know that the department faces is the budget issues. And one of the things that we're trying to do is that work with our council district to find some funds that could be available to fight, some of the crimes, some of the gang-related issues, and actually addressing homeless issues, the bridge home issues and things like that. So we are actually not only just working partnership with LAPD, but we're working with the council district to identify the issues and then to come up with the solution.
Thank you. Mr. Chong?
Okay, thank you. Yes, my issue is I really support the LAPD. I heard about the defunding. That issue is for me is terrible. I always, every time in the media and I talk to the public, I hope we can get more funding for the LAPD, get more manpower on the street. And that's why I really want to. Of course, the homeless issue, this is my big issue. Hopefully we can take care about that. I'm not saying kicking out, but we need to work together, see how to solve the problem. Yeah, that's why I really want to. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Vasquez?
Hi, it's reporting has really been an issue in our community with the pandemic. I know a lot of the station closures, a lot of our businesses have tried to call and they can't figure out how to make the police reports, where they can do it and how to follow up. So I think there needs to be some increased, we would like to increase staffing or increased communication regarding the means of how to follow up, report and follow up on the losses and the crimes that they suffered.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Vasquez. Appreciate that. Ms. Endo?
Actually,
Yeah,
Ms.
excuse me.
Kumamoto.
Yeah, I didn't speak earlier, but Ellen was speaking for us. I'm Joanne Kumamoto with the Little Tokyo Bid. But one of the things, Little Tokyo is lucky. We're a block away from the headquarters. We see police officers in Little Tokyo constantly. I think that there's still some concerns from some of the, say, non-English speaking. We have a lot of Japanese speaking living in Little Tokyo. And because we see, they see the officers, and historically, because of the concentration camps and things, I think there's still some hesitancy to engage in a dialogue. I want to say that having the Asian task force has been a real step forward, but we need to also have the rest of the LAPD, the other officers who are not Asian, also engage with the communities and start that kind of a dialogue so that I think people in our community feel as comfortable with them as speaking to our Asian officers, and for them to learn how to approach some of these people, or if they're asked questions, how to engage in that kind of dialogue. I think that would be helpful. I mean, we can't depend on just the Asian officers to be the liaison to our communities. We need every officer in LAPD as part of that program, part of that engagement, and especially with the ethnic communities. But thank you.
Thank you. And I apologize if I wrote some of the names down incorrectly. My apologies. I had next up Mr. Islam.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. I think the most pressing issue my community is facing is the slowness of reaction or action by the LAPD when they file a complaint. I'm sure this is due to the funding issues, but whenever we file a complaint, the persistent complaint that I get from the business owners is that we never hear back from LAPD, or they come after 2 days, 3 days. So if these thefts can be prevented in any way, shape, or form, I understand as a nation, as a world, we're going through very pressing times. It's very much understandable that it is unnerving for many. But again, we'll have to do our best to make sure that the community interest, the business interest is upheld. And second thing I would like the board to consider is to come up with innovative ways to recruit people from the communities that they represent. If you put in the police force from that community, you will have a direct communication with that community to make sure that you hear their concerns, you remedy the issues as and when they appear, and this will not be in the news. I mean, you will be on top of it every time, always, every day. So I would request the board to see if there is any way, shape, or form you can devise a way to attract these Muslim Americans, Bangladeshi Americans, because they always try and become doctors, engineers, and lawyers, just like my own kids. But we have to, most probably, if we in any way, shape, or form put a face to LAPD, the image of LAPD in a manner like Chief Moore. I mean, the unfortunate part is Chief Moore is such a splendid person who has such a beautiful background, growing up in Camarillo, being both his parents as physicians. So if we put a face to LAPD, what they have done, their personal life, how they came up to being the police chief, those stories, might make people be attracted to LAPD. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And Mr. Zapato, I had you as the next speaker.
Sunny, do you have anything?
No, like what I said, because we are having a meeting every first Tuesday of the month with the LAPD, and my relationship with the senior lead officer, we have no problem at all in dealing with the LAPD. And we really appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm sure my fellow commissioners might have more questions, so or the chief may want to comment. So I'll turn it back to you, Commissioner Briggs. Thank you all very much. Looks like
Thank you very much. I think we're all having computer issues today. Commissioner Bonner, did you have any questions? We can't hear you, Commissioner.
No.
We can't hear you. Something's wrong with your audio. Okay, at this time, we're going to go to Chief Moore until we figure out your audio, Commissioner Bonner.
Okay, so let me first do a sound check.
Yes, yes, Chief, we can hear you.
Very good. And my apologies for not being present during open session. It was had a conflict, a meeting with the mayor. It was unavoidable. But I did have the opportunity to begin attending today's meeting with the remarks by our AAPI panelists. And let me extend my thanks and appreciation to Chief Chow, Captain Tom, Police Administrator, Ms. Asukan, Elena, your leadership within the organization, but also to the members of the Chinese Chamber, the Korean Chamber, the Thai Chamber, Little Tokyo, Bangladesh efforts in their chamber. These are all trusted community partners. And in listening to your presentation today, I'm proud of our work and association, our collaboration, our partnership with each of the AAPI communities throughout Los Angeles. I'm also encouraged by your words of encouragement that you see the investment of time and energy. It has been purposeful. It has been an area that we've seen over the last 4+ years that has needed added attention, and it has not been done at my hand. It has been done while I heard constant remarks about me. Let me share this moment by thanking the leadership team that is before you on the panel, as well as men and women of Los Angeles Police Department who have thoughtfully and purposely invested and deepened our investment in the AAPI community across the entire spectrum. Also, I've heard your remarks, both and Captain Tom is the head of LEAP and the LEAP board. I hear also your concerns, and I share with you a commitment to deepen our internal representation and to deepen our representation at all ranks. And then the recruitment efforts to have us representative at not just the recruit rank, but at each of the ranks up through the senior ranks of this organization. That is an ongoing commitment, and one that I can assure you will not stop and will only continue with your cooperation, with your support. The last few years, the efforts of building an effective mentorship to identify candidates that are both desirous as well as capable of moving forward and ascending the ranks of this organization has been a true partnership. I want to thank Commander Flores for your coordination, your continued leadership in the DEI initiatives, both internally and externally. I look forward to your development in delivery of our internal survey, which is our next step for all of our groups of our ranks and file of the entire sworn and civilian. How can we promote a more inclusive, a more diverse workforce, and one that not just appreciates the position of privilege that they have holding whatever their rank or position within the organization, but feels that it thrives and that it meets their needs. Lastly, these last couple of years, we have seen with the pandemic, one of the most trying times in our history, within our generation at least. And with that, the very fabric of our society being pulled from so many different directions and pulled apart. I stand with the AAPI community as it does this department, and recognizing that your communities particularly have been vilified, have been used as a pawn in divisive times of political discord. It's shameful, it's repugnant, and it's wrong. And we stand with you, and we will pursue at every opportunity to identify people involved in instances of hate and crimes of hate. And we'll also continue to advocate that every lever of this criminal justice system, both at the state and federal level, be exercised. We're in a troubling time in our time as a country, as a democracy, and we've seen these times before. And what we know is that by pulling together and working on common values and the common pursuit of justice and fairness and equity for everyone, that we can emerge from this a better and stronger nation. But it begins at every neighborhood. It begins with every interaction. This department stands with you and will commit that not just those who represent you as far as their diversity and their organs, but every member of this organization, that we embrace the diversity and the richness of our community as an opportunity to build a safer Los Angeles. So I'm proud of the work of the presentation today. I particularly want to thank the community attendees for your continued investment in this, and I also listen intently to the areas in which we can improve. And I'm also encouraged, as a word of encouragement, that the budget that has been approved by the council, its final vote, I believe, is this week, and has been proposed by the mayor and is subject to his adoption, is a budget that helps invest more deeply in this organization, providing the very types of relationships and responsiveness that you've asked for. A highly visible, trained, and disciplined and equipped workforce of policing is 21st century policing. And I'm encouraged that the restoration of positions that have been lost over the pandemic, the restoration of services, and the deepening of investment in this organization is going to allow us to meet the needs that you've expressed. So thank you for this opportunity, Commissioner Briggs, and I welcome the presentation today.
Thank you, Chief Moore. Commissioner Bonner, do you want to try now? We still can't hear you. Sorry, Commissioner Bonner. But I want to echo the chief and my fellow commissioners. We really appreciate such an outstanding presentation today. Thank you, everyone in the room.